Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We're, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We're back, we're fresh-faced, and we're ready for the next instalment of Tottenham Hotspur, the soap drama. On this one, before we bring in a very, very special returning guest, back alongside me, as he has been for most of the summer, we've seen more of each other than our wives. I'll let you decide if that's a good or a bad thing. He's what happened half hour ago. It might be a good thing. Back alongside me, I've got the wonderful Jim from Oh So Spurs. Jim, how are you? Love to have you, mate, back alongside me for this one.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Top to be on. And look, it just felt so nice to remember what winning at home's like. So really enjoyed being at the ground yesterday and excited for tonight. So yeah, doing good.
Absolutely. Lovely to have you back alongside me, Jim. And also, look, this man doesn't need an introduction. You know when he's on, because quite frankly, for those that obviously listen to the playback, it might mean nothing to you, but our current chat function, I think, is going absolutely ballistic. So it only means it's the return of the one, the only. You're holding to his every word. And remember, again, it is the transfer window. Things do change all the time. The brilliant Paul O Keefe returns. Paul, how are you? I almost feel guilty doing this to you whilst we're mid-window.
Yeah.
But I didn't hold... But it's Tottenham. And here we go again,
exactly,
right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Good to be back. It's that time, isn't it? We've got 2 weeks to go. So, Daniel Levy comes out to play in the next 2 weeks. That's what normally happens.
It's, you know what, I think we all agree. I think we're going to come on to the second two, obviously, where we are with Spurs in this current window. I know there's that degree of frustration that we are in this place where we still need to do a lot of work, it maybe feels, and we're again leaving it to very, very late to do so, where again, we'll come on to it. There's been, clubs that we obviously want to shorten the gap to that have done a lot of work this window. And I think a lot of people now see the potential in what Thomas Frank can do for this football club. And I think that's where, again, there's that excitement there that if we do go out and give the manager those additional tools required, this could be such an exciting season. So look, of course, in this show, we'll be giving you the latest news of Spurs in the market. Of course, we know at the moment Tottenham are trying to, I say trying, I mean that with all due respect when I say trying. Obviously, they want to try and get Eberechi Eze over the line. We'll be talking to Paul about where we are with relation to that move. We know, again, that Savinho's been another key target during this transfer window. We'll be talking to Paul about where we are with that. We know Piero Hincapié, who Paul obviously told us about, I think, late last week, is a target. We'll be asking Paul where we stand on that. And obviously, we've had a few different interesting murmurs over the last 24, 48 hours. But look, it's a really important show, I think, this one, for a lot of the fans that love and adore Tottenham to have a gauge and understanding of what has happened so far this window to date and what's to come. So if we can encourage you, if you don't mind, to please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's make sure we get this out to a wide range Spurs audience. Please do likewise for Jim's little, amazing channel over at Oh So Spurs. Let's grow that as well. Jim, if you don't mind, I'm going to hand over to you to kickstart this special edition of Last Word on Spurs.
Yeah, sure. So look, hey, Paul, I know everyone's going to be itching for Eze in the comments, as we can see it blowing up. And we are going to get to that really shortly. But firstly, can we just remember, Paul is also a Spurs fan, just like us. So I would like to kick off by just checking in with you, Paul, and what you made of the game and where were you watching it? You happy with how things have started off this season?
Yeah, I think after, the disappointment on Wednesday where, we played really well, to be fair. And then they just they got too tired in the end and faded. And with that in mind, Frank obviously had to make some changes yesterday. I think the lineup surprised a lot of people, certainly surprised me anyway. And I think given the circumstances and the short turnaround and the relatively short time he's had with the squad, I thought they produced a really good performance. And Richarlison looks reborn. And if you can keep him fit, he's obviously he can be an asset. It's just that he's so frustrating for him, I'm sure, as well as it is for us. That he seems to be he just picks up too many injuries, unfortunately. But the patterns of play yesterday, the sort of organisation, the tactics matching up, against the opposition's strengths. I thought that yesterday was good, and that man in the picture there, Kudus, was just ridiculous.
Yeah. I do agree. And I think the hope is with Kudus that we can see that being replicated, of course, in the bigger games. Of course, Man City to come next week.
A lot of people said, last year he was shit and he wasn't this. He was shoved out on the left to accommodate Bowen. Now, obviously, Bowen is a very strong right-sided player. And he was the leading goal scorer, whatever for West Ham. So you can understand why he was sort of accommodating Bowen in that team. But I mean, this guy, I mean, he's obviously got bundles and bundles of talent, and I think at Spurs he gets more of a free rein, and he can really sort of unleash himself back on the Premier League.
Fingers crossed. Paul, obviously, we do know going into this game that, there was an element with it being, a championship side, and one that really showed themselves to be quite a difficult side to break down last season. I think they conceded just the 16 goals in 46 championship matches. So it was a completely different kind of test for Spurs to what Paris Saint-Germain was on the Wednesday. And again, it was a short turnaround in terms, obviously, the options that Frank had. Do you feel at the moment Frank is where he would want this team to be? And the reason why I ask you that is that, quite interesting, I think, week before last, we had some interesting snippets from an interview where he was being asked about his working relationship with him and Johan Lange, and the fact that it seems to be an indication there that they're still working to find that alignment naturally because of what he had at Brentford for a good 7-8 years when it comes to the way he has been working, and seemed to maybe indicate that maybe the profile of players he's been offered maybe, again, is maybe not in line with what he wanted. I mean, as far as you're aware, do you think it is where he wants the team to be at the moment? Would you say they're on the right pathway as things stand?
Yeah, I mean, they're building a relationship. So although they do know each other from previous sort of history, ultimately the recruitment guy's job is to come up with names and players that are going to fit the manager's style. And he's been offered players, and he's rejected players, and he's been offered other players, and he's obviously approved those players. And listen, everyone will know the squad isn't where he wants it to be at. It's getting there slowly. Unfortunately for us as fans, it's always too slow. We're always sort of impatient with that sort of thing. But sometimes you can't actually dictate the moves of others. So, we'll be dealing with chairmen that are saying they're going to deal and do a deal on certain players, and they may have other plans in the sense that they need to get players in, they need to get players out first, and then they'll deal with you and all that sort of stuff. So there's so many variables in a transfer that it's very difficult, and it's it's actually very easy for us to sit online and go, well, sign him, and do that and spend this, and the problem solved. Yeah, that's great, but in the real world, that isn't what happens. You meet with a player, then they don't quite fancy it, they need convincing, so then that puts a seed of doubt in your mind as to whether the player wants it enough. Then they go through the contractual side with the agent, and the agent might be demanding X amount of image rights and all this. It's so complicated now that it can be tripped up at any given point. And then, of course, when things go wrong, then we all sort of lambast the club. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's out of their control.
Can I ask one thing before Jim comes back in there, Paul? Just really intrigued to get your take on it. He came out recently and suggested that he sees Ben Davies as being quite an important player for the upcoming season. I mean, that got met with as you would imagine, a kind of a reaction where, well, hold on a second, is Frank a bit of a yes man? Is he going to be a person that challenges the board? I mean, it's the thing that, in the past, we've had Conte, Mourinho here, two of the well-renowned managers that normally push their boards to the maximum to get what they want. I mean, in someone like Thomas Frank, is he going to be someone, do you think, that is going to challenge the board to give him the best possible tools to be able to succeed at Tottenham?
Well, how many managers have Tottenham had since Pochettino? And every single manager
got a picture for everything.
but every single manager has kept Ben Davies. Every single one of them. So sometimes what we don't see is more important to the club and the manager behind the scenes. I think that you're talking about an experienced guy. You're talking about someone that, not necessarily going to be a regular starter. I think he's accepting of that. The club are accepting that. The managers are accepting of that. But that sort of experience and knowledge of the club and bringing those younger players through. I think if you spoke to the younger players about Ben, I think they'd all say what a great guy and how he's helped them settle and all that sort of stuff. So, and at the end of the day, you're going to release him, and it doesn't make much sense, to be fair. I think he's in his last year now, isn't he? So it's a natural cycle that will come to an end probably next season. And then in the summer, perhaps Spurs approach him to do some work with the youth team or something, coaching-wise. I don't see him as an issue, to be honest with you. And I think any manager will just be, say what they need to say about him. And I don't see him as an issue with squad selection and things. If they were overstacked, they could drop him from the the Champions League, I should say, the Champions League squad now. So yeah, I think that you need that experience. I think Frank had made a point actually in the summer where he wanted to go for that higher, well, not higher age bracket, but in football terms, the higher age bracket starts at sort of 24 now. So, you know, he was insistent on a more experienced sort of central midfielder. That's why they got Paulinho. But he was obviously very keen on Norgard, who's actually a year younger, I think. So, yeah, he's getting that blend. He won't get it in his first season or first 3 months that he's been there. But I think there's reasons to be positive. You know, I get that people don't want to see Ben playing, but then you've got to have that bit of experience around the squad, I think. And he can be useful in certain circumstances.
And why force him out the door? All he's going to cost is 10 months' wages.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? If you sign, you can still sign another centre back if you had to.
And I'm sure he's had opportunities actually to go and play play consistently, and he's stuck around. So, yeah, I personally, it's only my opinion. I don't really sort of worry too much about. Obviously, if he's your starting centre back every game, then you're in trouble. But we're not in that position, and we're in the market to sort of get the left-sided centre half that can go on and take his place when he does finish, so like a year transition. Hopefully they can do it this window. Be difficult to do it this window, but that's certainly something that's been in the forward planning anyway.
Well, that was kind of rolling on to the next question there, Paul. There's links to Hincapié, well, basically a left centre back, an attacking midfielder, and a left winger in Savinho and Eze.
Yeah.
And there's also been numerous rumours that, Spurs do have the funds to do it. Now, how they have the funds is based on your opinion, based on what you believe to read, all that stuff. But do you see a world in which we are going to go for all three positions this year?
It's certainly feasible. It's certainly what they'd like to do. It's easy to say it, isn't it? Yeah, we're definitely gonna get so and so, but that's obviously not the real world. But the ideal world for Spurs and for the board is that they get those three positions sorted this window. So whether they're successful in that is another matter of opinion. But certainly they identified very early on in the summer that the right wing was the priority position for them, given the history of Kulu's injuries, and not only that, but when he got moved centrally, he proved to be a much more sort of a dynamic player and more influential. So he never really shone as a right winger. So that was identified as the place that they wanted to start. They've started there. They got that void filled, and the next one is to move on to the 10. Obviously, that was obviously rushed a little bit because of Maddison's injury. We sort of treated it with a little bit more urgency, but the plan was always to get another central sort of attacking midfielder in. And with Sonny going, I mean, they let Moore go out and they let Sonny go. So the left-sided player is also obviously something that they desperately want to get sorted. So the links with Savinho obviously make sense because they need to fill that position. So they're doing it in the sense of the right way. They've identified the problems in the squad, whereas previously we were a bit opportunistic in the sense of, oh, this player's available, he's quite good, we'll take him. But we didn't have room for them. They didn't fit our system or our style. So it seems to be a little bit more orchestrated in that sense. But as always with Tottenham, the frustration is how long it takes to get deals over the line.
So just to be clear, Paul, you think at the moment we've moved on from a centre-back being the target between now and in the window? You'd be surprised if they were to...
I don't think we've moved on. I'm just saying, I think that for what they want and the player they want, it might not be possible in this window.
Fine.
And they're not just going to go and find a no disrespect to him, but say a Dragusin at 15, 20 million to fill the void. They won't do that. Yep. They want to make sure that it's the target and it's a proper player, if you like. As I say, no disrespect to any player that's already there, but they know there's a problem on that left side of defence, and they need to bring in strong competition and some versatility there.
I mean, quite interestingly, Paul, there's been a lot of links to, obviously, over the summer about there being a potential cash injection as such, and also this kind of structure with regards to maybe changing around Daniel Levy. I'm just intrigued to know just precisely on Daniel from your perspective, I think, again, in the earlier part of summer, there was a suggestion that maybe he would have maybe a bit of a change of role, a different, or say a reduced role, or perhaps even a non-football related role. Is that still, to some degree, your understanding that's going to happen, or where are we on Daniel Levy's immediate future as the chairman of the club, in your opinion?
Well, first things first, he's never going to walk away, not without being a massive sale. And a massive sale means a massive investment, which there aren't enough people in the world with the sort of money that are knocking around that are going to buy Tottenham Hotspurs. As simple as that. So, but Tottenham as a brand, Tottenham as a institution, as a company, are growing at such a rate that it would be ridiculous, just as a business point of view, to have one man ultimately trying to run every single department in that business. So, and I think you've seen yesterday with the presence of Vivian that there's a little bit of a sea change with the appointment of Vinay as well, and I'm expecting more appointments and more people to come on board, and Daniel's role could possibly change from being rather intrinsically linked to the football side of things. He could well be oversee the whole operation, if you like. So I think there will be changes in that regard. They do need to bring on more people because of the size of the business. It's just a natural progression. It's a huge thing now. I mean, when you're playing at White Hart Lane and you don't have pop concerts to organise, and you don't have a 60,000 seater stadium, and you don't have building projects, and you don't have all that sort of stuff going on, it's easy to manage the football club, or relatively easy in terms of his role. But with that company growing at such a rate that you can't, one man can't do it. It's as simple as that.
So when these people who were leading the ENIC side first joined the Tottenham and bought the club, we were like a 30-40 million pound business. You've got to add a zero to the end. I think a lot of people are kind of 2 zeros, some people would argue, and people are going, wow, okay, this is a bigger job to when I started. But you mentioned Vivian there, and like the important context I think that often can get overlooked is, whilst ENIC own about 87% of Spurs, the Lewis Trust, the Lewis family own about 70% of ENIC. So they are the more controlling majority of our football club, even though, Daniel Levy is the chairman, so he gets the cameras. He's the guy on what his salary is, which is a couple of £1 million a year. He's not the one who can go, here's £100 million of my savings account I want to chuck into a player. It's more like it's come from the Lewis Group. But all these links to, their investment, there's talk of £120 million potentially coming in. Do you see much in these rumours? Can you see that happening in any world?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard for years on end about, they're going to be a takeover, there's going to be investment, it's going to be this. But for this is the first time that I've ever took it really seriously because of the people it's coming from, sort of thing. And we have seen some evidence of the changes with the certain board members being brought in, and Donna is going to be reduced. Well, she has reduced her role from the board. So there's definitely something going on, if you like, behind the scenes. And I mean, ENIC now they can pump in, I think it's 90 million anyway, because owners can pump in 90 million pounds of funds in a 3-year period. And the last time ENIC done it was 3 years ago. So they are capable of putting in money. It's the interesting thing is to find out, and I've not been able to do it, but to find out whether it's investment coming from ENIC themselves or whether someone has bought into ENIC to put into the football club, and that's not clear. But that's the sort of rumor mill, if you like, or the word on the street that I'm getting is that somewhere this money's come from, and whether it's from direct or not, or indirectly, there's definitely something going on with that. And there's obviously major deals on the horizon with regards to sponsorship.
It's quite interesting. Again, we spoke about this off air, Paul, that I think, again, there's been links to Peter Charrington coming on obviously on part of the board as well. But if they were to follow through with all the signings that allegedly they're trying to do, and you add up the cost amounts they've gone for, I mean, it would be Tottenham's biggest ever transfer window, certainly based on the net they're spending, right? If you add in what they're looking to do, the likes of Kudus, of course, if they are going to get over Savinho and Eze, what they'd be spending is more than they've ever spent on a transfer window, right?
Yeah, but if we actually take a step back and look at what they've done so far, and we'll obviously be critical they haven't done enough. I get that totally. But so far, they've gone out and done 55 on Kudus, 35 on making Tell a permanent signing, and then they tried to spend 60 million on Morgan Gibbs-White. So that's 150 million quid that they've tried to spend in this window. They've spent effectively 90. So then, you know, if Gibbs-White had come off, they would be up to 150 million. You know, and then they're going to still add others. They're looking at these three players who are going to be probably, you know, 60 odd each. So you're talking about a huge amount of money. So I get the pessimism and I get the sort of seeds of doubt from Spurs fans. We've had 24 years of this. We've heard this so many times. So, but their actions so far, all right, we come unstuck with the Gibbs-White debacle, but I don't think, unfortunately, I don't think Spurs were really responsible for that. So there is some evidence that they're trying to sort of change their ways a little bit, but it's early days again. So
yeah, I mean, one man that has left the football club, and quite interesting on the point of financials and revenues. I'm just intrigued to get your take on it, Paul, from your perspective, your personal maybe take on it. Heung-Min Son, look, again, legend of the football club. Gave us all, ideally, probably one of our best ever modern day moments as Spurs fans, of course, being part of that side that lifted that trophy in Bilbao. Again, it wasn't that far long ago, right? And then we're waving him off. We're saying goodbye to him. He completed that move, of course, to LAFC. Quite interestingly, I read over the weekend that Heung-Min Son's jersey is the highest selling jersey of any athlete in the world right now. So he's outselling the likes of LeBron James, Steph Curry, and even Lionel Messi. I mean, and that's per the LAFC co-president and GM, John Thorrington. I just wonder from your perspective, Paul, people can easily look at the financial element, but how much do you think Spurs are going to miss his influence around the club? And if you feel free, you want to comment on the financial revenue he brought into the club and how much that could be a massive miss for the club. What do you think on those points?
Yeah, I mean, the shirt sales generally, a club will do a deal with Adidas and or whoever the shirt supplier is, and they'll get X amount up front anyway. So they don't necessarily, they just get a set fee. So they don't always make like huge bundles on the fact that they sold an extra million shirts. I don't think that's necessarily the be all and end all. And in the last few years, Son and his camp had got very wise to these deals, and they've done a lot of deals outside of Tottenham with brands. So, you know, fair play to him. He's protected his own interests. So Sonny's brand wasn't devaluing, but there was less of the pot for Tottenham, if that makes sense, because he'd sewn up most of the deals on his own. So and his camp. So, you know, the stuff he was doing wasn't always necessarily Tottenham related. So yeah, obviously they did so well out of Sonny, and he's paid for himself, you know, hundreds of times over, if you like. So it was just a natural sort of coming to an end in the end, and he had a great exit, didn't he? You know,
yeah,
he's probably had the best exit of any Tottenham player that I can remember, in the sense of he won a trophy, you know, he'd done his 10 years. The story was amazing, really, and and he goes with everyone patting him on the back and everyone saying, "What a great servant! What a fantastic guy!" And in footballing terms, I think it was also the right time, because all of a sudden he'd lost that yard of pace, and it became noticeable. And I didn't really want to see him having to be rotated every other game in the next season. I didn't want that ending for him. So for me anyway, I think it was the perfect ending.
Yeah, it's funny because I've criticised. I mean, Jimmy, I'm sure you have an opinion as well. I've criticised the club a lot, definitely over the last few years, about their comms and their handling of certain situations. But I have to say, even for me, someone that's criticised the club a lot, I felt the way they just handled the whole Sonny situation of him moving was absolutely top class, through to the announcement and then right through to his departure. I mean, that night when they were releasing the Sonny footage that night, I mean, we were already dead, but they just kept bringing the content. It was magnificent the way the club handled that. I have to give them credit. It was superb, wasn't it? It was.
They did that very well, and that I think is that Vinay's influence, because apparently, you know, from talking to people, he's very, very, very good with PR relations and listening to fans and sort of talking to them and getting the mood right. So Yeah, that's another sign, that maybe they're, trying to do things differently, which is, much needed after 24 years of sort of this cold relationship with the fans. They don't really have a relationship with the fans, Spurs. There's no sort of transparency. There's no sort of, giving, is it? You might throw on the odd free coach or whatever, but that gets you back to London at about 9 o'clock on the Tuesday after a Saturday game, sort of thing. But so hopefully that's another thing that's changing, because different voices in the ballroom make a big difference, because for the last 24 years all you've had is people just going, yes Daniel, that's right Daniel, yes that's right. So that little bit, I think that little bit of is a little bit of a sea change, and who knows, maybe with the fact that Big Joe has sort of stepped aside and Daniel now hasn't got the guy that just basically left him to it, and other people coming in with younger, bigger ambitions perhaps, are starting to ask questions as to, what's happening here, whereas perhaps Joe was more quite happy to just sit on his yacht out in the Bahamas.
Feels like it's almost like, come on, we've always been in the big leagues, but this is it now. That next step is
start to behave like a big club. You can't keep telling people you're a big club without behaving like it.
And it's ironic, isn't it, in a way, that Daniel doesn't like being in front of cameras by the looks of it, we assume, but by being silent, you make yourself more of a focal point to the media and the fans, because when they don't know what you're thinking, they have to make their own assumptions to what you're thinking. And then it can kind of spiral into, it can spiral into histrionics and just get very intense. You're better off addressing your audience and just telling them what's going on. You communicate clearly and people know what the plan is. In return, you'll probably find yourself in front of the cameras less over the long term for good reason. So,
I think he's just socially awkward as well. It just doesn't come natural to him. And like many rich people, they're just socially awkward. It's just the way he is. I don't think like he managed to put his foot in it when he said, "Oh, we want to win the Champions League, we want to win the Premier League," as if we were going to do it this season. Whereas all he was trying to say was, in a roundabout way, believe me, we're as ambitious as you are. So that was the point he was trying to make, but he sort of made a clusterfuck of it, to be fair.
Are you telling us, Paul, we're not going to win the Premier League and we're not going to win the Champions League?
Yeah. Well, certainly this season anyway, yeah.
I saw someone tweet today, it was, has anyone else gone from 17th to first, or are we going to be the first club to do it?
So we can say we were first for about 45 minutes. Stop the count.
Just for we're going to move on to the big question around Eze in a second, but Paul, just before we do, can we just put the Morgan Gibbs-White kind of thing to bed, because there is still some conjecture and guesswork going on around kind of the whole thing. It sounded absolutely crazy what went on, with curveballs left, right, and centres. Everyone got educated about how release clauses work to another level. But can you shed any light on what actually went on behind there, and whether the reason it didn't go ahead was predominantly on us or Nottingham Forest or a mix of the two? Like, do we actually know, or are you able to help us understand that a bit better?
No, the whole thing was just absolutely bonkers. How do you have a secret release clause? Tottenham acted on the information they received, and they can't be responsible for the information they received. If you have an agent or if you have an intermediary telling you this lad has a release clause of X amount, so if you offer that amount, it triggers it and you're allowed to speak to the player, and Spurs do that, or they think they've done that, then it just doesn't seem... It's madness that they should say that's a confidential clause, or then if it's confidential, there's absolutely no point in having it, because no one will ever hear about it. So it doesn't make any sense in the first instance. I think a lot of blame will have to go squarely on at the agent's door, really, to be fair, because someone has informed Tottenham of this information and encouraged them to sort of go in that direction. And then it's all gone wild. And then, of course, Nottingham Forest, as is their right, can say, well, yes, they have offered X amount of pounds, and yes, you can speak to them. However, we want to speak to you too, and we want to make a counter offer of our own. So that, and that's seemingly what sort of happened. And that the lad has signed a record deal, which they put out publicly, which is quite bizarre. And the whole situation was bizarre. But then to publicly announce that we've agreed a record deal for our player. Like, you don't normally announce record deals as in wages. You might do as a transfer fee, but for a salary, it just doesn't make much sense, to be fair. But the guy obviously who runs that football club operates in a completely different stratosphere to other people. So it's something, he didn't look best pleased, did he, the player, even though he was getting his record deal. So it's all a bit weird, all a bit bizarre. Feel sorry for Spurs in the sense that they thought that they were acting in good faith in the sense of the information they received. So if someone tells you this player is available for X amount release clause and you go for it, and you think you've triggered it, I don't think you're not tapping them up. I mean, literally every single football club in the land will suss out if a player is interested in talking to you and coming to your club. So, it's just very, very strange. I did feel a bit sorry for Tottenham in that instance, because they've been led up the garden path and mugged off, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Ali Glow did a recent piece, and he said, there was people inside Spurs that were left flabbergasted and experienced people in the North London club. I mean, probably had never experienced a situation like it. And when it ends, I think in the player, what we're hearing, they actually called up Frank and apologised to him for the situation. And Frank said, "It's not your fault. We've been put in." Utterly bizarre, right? Utterly bizarre, that whole saga itself.
Also, I mean, I come up with my own sort of conspiracy as an option, and this isn't information or anything like that. Yeah, there's nothing to say, because Spurs won't publicly comment on it. Right? They would never do that. They won't get involved in a war of words with other clubs through the media. But what if he spoke to Spurs? He said, "Yeah, I'm happy to come," and then his agent said, "Oh, Forest have offered you 200 grand a week. We need to let Tottenham know this and see if they match it." And then he could have gone to Tottenham and the agent. I'm not saying this has happened, but if the agent's gone back to Daniel Levy of all people and said, "They're now offering us £200,000 a week, for example. What do you think?" And he would be perfectly within his rights to say, "Well, you were prepared to agree a deal at 125, for example. So now, how much does the boy want to come to Spurs if it's just about money, sort of thing, So maybe they went back to Spurs and come up with an offer that wasn't even viable for Tottenham. They went, "Do you know what? Fuck this. We're not interested." But again, we won't ever know. No. Well, I don't know that as fact. That's certainly not fact. That's just me thinking. I know how certain agents operate. And if they've tried to pull one over Daniel Levy's eyes by getting an improved contract at his current club, he's never falling for that.
Well, listen, it is over that, and obviously we have moved on. And obviously, in moving on, the alternative target, which is one that has dominated the last couple of weeks and dominated all our lives, is Eberechi Eze. We are going to go there next, but we are just going to fit in our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. We have got over 15,500 of you that are watching the show live. Thank you ever so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. Just a very little bit of housekeeping, if you don't mind, guys. This is our last opportunity for those that have listened and watched us over the last 7-8 years and the support we get. Thank you so much again for all the love I received at the stadium. I've got to say, yesterday, last opportunity for us in the Football Content Awards. You can help us as bringing home another trophy for the best podcast in the Premier League. You can do it right now by hitting that QR code for us. That would be greatly appreciated. That information is also in our episode description. And we also are still running the discounts with Sailey, of course. That's NordVPN's baby out there. So for our Champions League journeys across the season, fans going home and away, you can get 15% off your first purchase by using the code LWOS. That is also the same, of course, for Nord directly, where you can get 4 extra months for free on a 2-year plan by hitting those QR codes. Next, we are going to turn our attention, of course, to what has become one of the most intriguing sagas of the recent summer. And I know for this particular player, it's weird because I don't think I've ever seen a situation where there's kind of a universal agreement that this is the player everyone wants. And you know what? we know what social media is like. It's, again, it's a place where you say something is black, some people claim it's white. It's a crazy place out there. But when the name Eberechi Eze does come up, I don't think I've seen anybody that says this guy does not improve Tottenham, does not walk into our first team. Now, I think it's evidently clear, Paul, you broke it yourself only a few days ago, that we know the clubs appear to be in talks to kind of cut through all the crap that's out there. The latest situation we've got is that Eze played, of course, in that 0-0 draw for Palace against Chelsea over the weekend. Mm-hmm. Oliver Glasner has come out on the Sunday and said from his perspective, he would like to be selecting the player and he wants him to play in their upcoming Europa Conference League qualifier, which is on Thursday. So you can imagine right now, the fans are very, very confused. I mean, we've heard a lot of suggestions. And again, from some that the deal is close. He's played, obviously, in this game in the Premier League. Where are we, in your opinion, on Eberechi Eze being a Tottenham player?
What do they expect Glasner to say? His club are negotiating a sale. He says, he'll be gone by Thursday. They lose all negotiation power. So, everyone I speak to in the game is saying he'll be a Tottenham player. So, and a few people just, when I've asked them, have sent back, just calm down. Why is everyone getting so irate? Just calm down. So, I don't see a world at the moment, anyway, unless there's some dramatic turn of events where they can't get the deal over the line. And that's, as I say, that's from people that I speak to on the daily. Well-informed people, more informed than myself, that's for certain. That they don't see any reason as to why this won't get over the line. Now, we're Spurs fans, so obviously we always have that doubt, and I have that doubt myself. And until he's holding the shirt, as they say, and all the rest of it, and done his montage and blah blah blah.
We get your fully coised tweet.
I abandoned that this year because I thought people might be a bit sick of it. It's a bit old hat,
Well, after we've seen that compilation go around of you, Paul, that's been the last 24 hours.
I was just watching a Spurs. That Spurs tweeted yesterday the Kudus goal and the 17 passes away. Not Kudus goal, sorry, the Kudus cross, blah blah.
Yeah.
And your feed just flicks up to the next video, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it flicked up and it's fucking me, and I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? So but it was very funny anyway. It was very funny, and people, like I say,
that's brilliant.
People always give me shit and stuff, but it's all good. It's all good. So, on Eberechi, look, there was indications on Friday night.
Yep.
On Friday night that it was actually a done deal. That was the sort of vibe that was coming through on Friday night. And then yesterday there was talk that it was still going ahead. Blah blah blah. And then this morning, apparently, he had a chat with Glasner about playing, because yesterday he'd indicated that he didn't want to play, wasn't going to play, and that was, I think, a decision just because of the circumstances. And then it was sort of discussed, but not, as far as I understand, not formally decided between the clubs. More a case of between Palace and the player. Than Spurs insisting he doesn't play or whatever. So as far as I understand, he had a chat with Glasner this morning, and he said to him that Mark's playing, so and he's obviously got a lot of speculation around him as well. So, and I think Eze himself will want to go about this the right way and the right exit and all that sort of stuff. So, the way he reacted at the end with the fans, perhaps was a good indication of where his head's at. Make no mistake, he wants to come to Tottenham. So he's made that clear. He's made his intentions to leave clear as well. So, you're sort of cautiously optimistic. And, like I say, everyone's telling me to calm down. So I keep asking the same questions and getting the same answer back, which is, so that, if we want to take that as a good sign, I suppose it is. And Daniel Levy now is under pressure, isn't he? So he has to, he's gone in this far. He has to deliver now. So because the backlash will be, it's not good look for someone that you've just employed either. If you can't get this deal over the line, and then you can't get Morgan with Gibbs-White before it, and you've got a new manager, it's not the greatest look, is it?
I know Jimmy's biting to come in. Can I just ask one very quick follow-up question, Paul? I'm just intrigued to know this because Eberechi feels like he's been a club target for a very, very, very long time. I think our interest dates back to in the QPR days. So I'm just intrigued to know from you, how much has Thomas Frank, in your opinion, been really driving this move for Eberechi? Is it a player that Frank really has wanted, given the fact that it feels that with Gibbs-White, he tracked him for a long, long time? Again, I think back to his Wolves days. Just how much is Thomas Frank really wanting the son of Eberechi, in your opinion?
Yeah, initially, during the summer, and then a couple of months ago, the word was that he admired him as a player, absolutely, top-class footballer, but he had other preferences. It turns out the other preference was obviously Gibbs-White, but there was some concern about some of his data. I know that with regards to some running stats and things, and whether he would fit stylistically perfectly into the side. But I think that was all ironed out, and obviously with James's Maddison's injury, obviously that's sort of propelled their sort of intensity to get someone in and get a quality footballer in. That's not to say that Frank, don't admire the player. I'm sure, like everyone, he's got massive sort of respect and really admires the footballer. So, yeah, but was he his first choice? I don't believe that to be the case, but that's not necessarily, in his mind, he might have felt that Arsenal were perhaps more going to go for him anyway. So, I think now that the opportunity has arisen, he's fully on board, without doubt.
I always feel once the level of media kind of focus on you about leaving gets to this level, and all you have to do is shut it down, is just say, I'm not leaving, and you choose not to. It shows there's concrete activity or feelings or motion behind it, right? It's
the guy is 27 years of age. He's given a lot of good service to Crystal Palace. He's won trophies with them now, which is a fantastic achievement for a club of Palace's stature. And this is his opportunity, isn't it? So this is the time where, as an agent, if you speak as an agent, with 2 years to go, this is the critical time for him as a footballer to make that move, if he's going to make that. Because, once he gets to a free contract, you can obviously earn a lot of money out of that. But this is, if you want ambitions to play in the Champions League at your peak sort of age, which he is now, obviously peak age, it's the time to go.
Well, talking of other players, go on, sorry, Ricky.
I was asked one question. How surprised are you, Paul, that as things stand, look, hopefully this is not going to, I'm not putting the mockers on it here. How surprised are you that Arsenal haven't come back in for the player? Because it seems to be the indication that once Ethan Nwaneri signed that new deal, they have then decided now to basically put all their trust in him and not go with Eze. Are you really surprised that they've not gone in for him, or as in maybe they've gone in for him in the earlier part of summer, or had interest in him in the earlier part of summer? They've not followed up on that initial interest. How surprised are you by that?
Yeah, a little bit, but then they renewed the contract of one of their young players that they really rate, Enquiries or someone, and they've always said that they needed someone who can play left wing, and they don't see Eze as a left winger as much as they sort of admire the player. They've got other priorities. And they're in a position where they need to sell players. They need to move players on before they can sort of buy again. So they obviously concentrated heavily on the striker position this summer. So, a little bit surprising, because the minute Spurs are involved, you'd think, well, Arsenal would do it just to sort of get at Tottenham. But it seems that there's only Spurs, as we speak now, that are in the race sort of thing. And the lad wants to come. So, hopefully it's just a matter of time before they can get it over the line.
And I promise this is my last question before Jim takes over for a long, long time. Time frame, Paul. I know it's difficult to say that because, again, he's not in the Spurs shirt, and again, there's obviously still work to do. Do you think the club would ideally like to get him in the squad for City on Saturday? Is that being maybe too ambitious, given it feels maybe there's a little bit more work to do? What would you say on that? Is there a gauge on that for you on that? What do you think?
it's silly to try and do timescales. I mean, it could break in the next 10 minutes. It could take 10 days. The only thing you can say is that the window shuts on September the 1st or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's a conference game for Palace on Thursday where he could feature, but the likelihood is even if he gets in that squad, I can't see him starting because I think they'll rotate and he wouldn't play anyway. So
right, okay.
But even if he did play, it wouldn't make him ineligible for Spurs to play in the Champions League anyway. So, hopefully there's more clarity tomorrow or Tuesday. But some of these deals now, they take forever. I mean, we think it's just us, but if you look at Man United's pursuit of the Brentford lad over the summer. It took forever, didn't it? And even Arsenal with their centre forward, that took a long time. Deals now are so convoluted and so complicated, and there's so many other factions that weren't involved years ago with these, this how much of the percentage of the sales of the image rights is this going to generate, and how much is this commercial deal? It's really, really messy and complicated. And at the end of the day, you're not talking about gambling a few quid here. You're talking about if you sign Eberechi for say 55 million quid and then you're paying him his salary on top of that, the 5-year deal, you're talking a business transaction that's worth sort of, off the top of my head, 90 to 100 million quid. So those things you don't just sign off in the back of a pub car park. So they take time, and everyone has to, you may agree that the playing contract, and then you can't agree the image right contract because this agent's saying, well, yeah, but we want another 5% here and we want here. It gets all very complicated and very convoluted. It's a different world from our lives, that's for certain. And they've all got like private chefs and private physios, and it's a mad world, football.
You've just triggered every aggregator on the internet to say Paul O Keefe says in 10 minutes Eberechi Eze is about to be announced. So just brace yourself. Your phone might be overheating.
The 2:30 a.m. announcement, Paul, won't forget. Billy T, whoever Billy T was, me and Billy messaged each other and went, has Paul got a burner account? It was half 2 in the morning. We thought, no, this must be AI. There's no way Paul's up at half 2 in the morning. And then me and Billy were like, we can't sleep now. We just can't sleep. So it was remarkable that when you deliberately did it at that time was just. It was incredible.
It wasn't. It's not a case of being deliberate. It's a case of checking, and double checking, and triple checking. Because the problem now, of course, is I can't say anything in passing that's just like you would in that. So if I met you in the pub, I go, I've heard we're interested in so and so, and you go, oh really? Oh yeah, that's all right, and it's forgotten about.
Yeah.
I know I forget myself, so I'm to blame.
Not allowed to do that in this world anymore, Paul. Not since X has been invented.
I think I'm talking to one person where I'm actually talking to probably 200,000 Spurs fans. So and like today, someone's having a go at me saying, I hope you bring Paul to task over the way Daniel behaves and all this on this show tonight. I cannot influence what Daniel Levy does. And he said, as a reporter, you should do this. I'm not a reporter for Tottenham. I just happen to sometimes get told a few bits and try to share them with other fans. And yes, it's a bit mad, but it's all good fun, I suppose.
Paul, I think I say this, so you don't have to share the information you share with us. So I think as fans that are so in a transfer window, I can only speak for the fans I know that are so grateful for you giving us your time on here to give us the news on what we want to hear. So we can't thank you enough. I know sometimes you give us news we don't want to hear, but that's just the nature of it. It can't always be, if we're only to report the positive news, it might be a very short element.
And in the summer, I got well and truly stitched up on the Kudus deal, and that where it came from, you wouldn't believe.
Okay,
it came from very, very high up in a certain football club, and it wasn't Tottenham. But anyway, that happens. You get given bum steers and. People let you down occasionally, but that's the risk you take. If you put yourself out there, then I have to take it on the chin. I don't have to say anything. I could just ignore it all. But it's good to engage with other fans, and it's at the end of the day, we're all, whether we like to admit it or not, we're all fucking nosy, and we're all gossip merchants. We're worse than women. That the garden fence is now X. What used to be the garden fence is now X. So
Jim, come back in, save us. I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to shut up. It's not fast for me.
No, I actually really enjoy just hearing your perspective as well, Paul. what it's like being on the side of the fence from, you know, getting all the perception of what you are is probably is very different to, you know, what you're probably trying to do. Like you said, if you're just trying to help people out, share some information you've got, and people out there are going, you're a journalist, it's your moral obligation to do X, Y, and Z. I think it's important to, you know, highlight the reality where we stand.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is that you know, a lot of the older when it was Twitter users sort of, you know, that they understand it a bit more than some of the new guys that are coming and opening up accounts that they just see that oh, there's this guy in England, because they might not be from England themselves. They don't know the sort of history behind it, or, you know, so yeah, it's fine. Like I say, if you're stupid enough, like I am, to put your name against stuff and it goes wrong, then you got to expect a backlash, and that's what happens. And sometimes, as I say, maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Mm. Well, Paul, we have to keep the audience, give them what they want. And there's a few more players we've got written down here. We might hope
I can imagine, yeah.
Heard some whispers about. Just before we move on to, I know, you know, people want to hear about Hincapié and Savinho, but also 𝐁𝐰𝐬's one I don't think we should move too quickly away from, because he's another Palace player, 10 months left on the contract. You mentioned a centre-back is something we want to get done this window. Could you see that one? Is there any evidence in your, you know, when I say evidence, wrong word, but yeah. Go on.
The sort of word from within Palace, my Palace contact is saying that basically Liverpool are bust. But he did say that Spurs' offer to him on personal terms was very, 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 very good. Was his word. So, but I think it might be a case with Mark that if he doesn't get his Liverpool move, then he'll stay the season and see it out and go on a free. Which, you know, if in a sort of roundabout way, probably helps Spurs negotiations, because if you think about it logically, we offered 70 million for 𝐁𝐰𝐬 in January, and the club were prepared to accept that bid, but the player camp said, you've moved too late in the window, we don't have time to assess this offer, so therefore we're not interested. But now, because of that, Palace have lost probably, say, 40 million, because if they sell in this window, he's likely to reach 30 million, which compared to the 70, they've lost obviously 40 million. Whether they'd be prepared to then do that with Eze, 60 million becomes 30 next year as well, and they're going to lose Mark on a free. Can they really afford to refuse Spurs 55 mil offer for Eze? I don't think they're in a position personally. It wouldn't be good business. It would be a disaster for them, in my opinion, anyway. But I think, you know, Steve Parish at the moment will be loving sort of dangling a string to Daniel, and sort of he can dictate timings, because that's his right. He at the moment has the sort of upper hand, and he can hold on to the player for as long as he wants, and then do a deal at the last minute if he wishes. So yeah, I think Mark's situation, I don't see Spurs sort of trying to reignite that. If they bid 70, then logic would suggest they'd bid the 30 now as well. But maybe they've got an indication from the player camp that he won't come, so it would be futile.
I have to ask, just on your opinion, Paul, just those negotiations that are happening between Daniel Levy and obviously Steve Parish, they're two quite unique individuals in their own right, and the fact that they will act or try and act in the best interest of their football club financially in terms of what they want. How intriguing do you think that negotiation has been with the Eze one, and even with 𝐁𝐰𝐬? Because I mean, we were on here with you in January, and we were also, were we surprised, or we think it was a bit of a bluff to try and go in for 𝐁𝐰𝐬 on the last day of the window? I mean, it was obviously, you told us it was genuine at the time, but what do you make of that whole that whole negotiation piece between Daniel and Steve Parish?
People like Daniel Levy and football clubs don't go around making bluff £70 million offers. I mean, we'd like to think that is the case sometimes, but you don't run that risk. You can't bluff that sort of level of spend. You might bluff it on a free transfer, on a wage side of things, but in reality, no business runs like that. They thought that if they went late, their tactic would be that they would sort of beat the queue for the summer. But his agents and his camp are obviously wise to the fact that he can potentially get a better payout, I suppose, and a club that he really wants to go to in Liverpool. So yeah, I don't see that it was just, and people say, oh, these lines come out only because we're this, they're that, and every time there's a protest, there's a link to a transfer. That in reality, that doesn't happen. It's not. Spurs don't feed out lines of, we're going to buy this player for 60, 70 million because there's a protest. And as much as we'd like to believe they do, they don't. Yeah. They certainly wouldn't talk to me anyway. People think that I've got a direct line to Daniel Levy or something, but he probably hates every single tweet I put out, in fairness.
Is that exclusive? Look, we're gonna quickly squeeze in just very quickly our next break of the show for our listeners and audio. We are aware, obviously, that Eze is one of a number of players Spurs are going to tie up. The other big one, of course, is Savinho. So we're going to just quickly fit in that audio break. Jim's going to come back for us and do that. We have got nearly over 20,000 of you that are watching the show live, which is, I mean, again, simply remarkable. We thank you again for all your incredible support for Last Word On Spurs. We thank Jim as well, who's been a real stalwart with me across the summer, that has steered the ship in what has been quite stormy waters. I know for some out there, they are still very much stormy and they would like to see the sun obviously come up at the end. It might come up at the end. I know a lot of people would like to see the business being done right now. And I think, again, we appreciate that with Tottenham, Daniel leaving the way Spurs work. I can't remember too many windows where we aren't normally scrambling or aren't coming towards the end, always feeling like we need to do more. And I've said this several times that, I mean, at the end of a window, in an ideal world, you'd like to feel you've come out of it and you feel like you've got exactly what you need. But I know for many managers, many fans out there, they always feel like they need more. But listen, guys, if you're enjoying the show, if you can hit that like button for us, if you can, again, hit that subscribe button, that would be greatly appreciated. The same for Jim, of course, at OSO Spurs. And let's come on to another player that I know a lot of people would love to see sign for this club. And he, again, has been one that has dominated the past couple of weeks. Jim, let me hand back over to you.
Thanks, Ricky. I'm just laughing at the comments. People are joking around with us. But yes, Savinho, Paul, like it seems from what we've heard outside as fans is Man City want Rodrigo. And to buy Rodrigo, they need to sell Savinho. But they need commitment. They're going to get Rodrigo first. But they need enough money from us to make the Rodrigo transfer viable. Is that all right? And does it feel like Spurs are going to go above and beyond? Because it feels like if we want to get it over the line, it's going to be a player that perhaps we have to go over what, your average person would say they're valued at. What's your understanding of this one?
Well, it would have to be a record for Tottenham, a record transfer fee. So that's quite interesting in the fact that they've identified this young guy as the man they want to do it. As far as I know, and I'm not really that clued up on this deal. It's not something I've really spoken to many people about, to be fair. But the understanding, again, from the people that I do speak to, is that he is one that they definitely want, and they are going to go back in. So there was initial talks that didn't end up with a sort of resolution, if you like. But as far as I know, they intend to sort of revisit it.
Which, again, would be, fascinating if they do bring him in, because suddenly then you look at the spending, what they would have done. I can't remember too many windows. Jim, you want to come back on this point? When you think about Premier League experienced players that are international players of a certain calibre that would elevate the squad, Kudus, Eze, I think even, saying Savinho, I think they walk into the first team. I mean... Yeah.
Totally different approach. And we said, I think the last time I was on, that Spurs were going to start acting where they went for sort of players that were higher bracket in terms of fees, but also, sort of the age consideration to sort of get a bit more, as great it is to sign your Bergvals if they work, obviously, they just need that sort of fully fledged, proven sort of Premier League level players, and they need 2 or 3 of them to sort of really catapult themselves up from sort of 17th to be able to challenge for the top 4. And I think, where they've got an advantage is they've got a World Cup year, so players are keen to sort of get first team football and not just sit on a wage. So I anticipate that they will try and go for him, but I sense that everything is being sort of directed on Eze at the moment for the next couple of days anyway.
Yep. Just, I mean, the intriguing part of this, we are obviously Pep Guardiola in his press conference on Friday, seemingly suggesting that he would ideally like the player to be there for many, many years to come, but did also offer an admittance that at the end of the day, maybe whatever the player does want may end up prevailing here. Because Pep is, I mean, it's interesting. He's one manager that really doesn't want to kind of, block a player's path if they do want to leave. I'm just intrigued on your point on that, Paul, because I mean, he's clearly a talented player. I think he actually played 3 of the last 4 games for City at the Club World Cup. So he was clearly in Pep's plans, and he's already invested like a lot of time into him after in the last 12 months. So how surprised are you that the player, from what, by all accounts, what we're hearing, is really keen on the move? Is it just, you may be thinking, maybe it's a personal opinion, is it because it's a World Cup year? Is it because he goes to Spurs and there's a lot of an easier chance to get into the team? Is it based on that? I mean, are you surprised by the fact of how open the player is to leave, which could be, again, Premier League champion City this season for a club? No disrespect like Tottenham. We love Tottenham, but we know Tottenham at the moment, we want to see Tottenham compete for the league, but it feels like it's going to take a little bit of time for us to get back to that level, right? Are you surprised by that?
Well, Pep obviously forgot his lines because he forgot to say that he was injured, and then he said he was injured. If you've seen that clip, then I think that's quite telling. Pep does not keep players who say they want to leave the football club. He's proven that. And obviously, at the moment, there's going to be a lot of backwards to's and throw-ins of, oh yeah, we want to keep the player, he's special, and all that. That's just normal. That's normal behaviour. Why wouldn't he say that? Because if they can't do a deal with Spurs and Spurs don't come up with the money, then obviously he's got to manage that player. So it's the same. It's the same with Eze, and any transfer, the managers are going to be coy on it. So, but yeah, he's indicated from what I gather that he would like to come as well. So I think it's about starting and playing, and there's a vacancy on that sort of left side for someone to come in and play sort of every week. And it's Champions League football. I think, ultimately, regular Champions League football for these young players is a massive thing.
Well, Paul, there's one more that everyone's itching to hear about, I think, on top of Savinho and Eze. Hincapié has been linked with us heavily, and he's the third one of about a similar value. Really. They all seem to be around 50 to 75 million, with a sweet spot of around 60 to 65, which, as you said at the start, considering we've already spent 90, it would just be an enormous summer if we pulled all 3 off. But I understand a lot of people, and I understand a lot of people are going to be skeptical because of past windows. But do you understand that he specifically? You've already mentioned we are in for a left centre back, but do you understand that Hincapié is the main focus, and is he actually realistic? Does he actually want to come to Spurs?
Yeah, I mean, that side of it, I don't know what his thoughts are or his club's thoughts are. But I mean, you say we've been linked. We were linked a few seasons ago, weren't we? And on and off, sort of. But this time is the sort of strongest indication that I've had that I initially got they're onto a left-sided centre back in Germany. That was the information. So I started to dig, and fortunately, I found out who it was. So whether it progresses past that, I don't know on that one. I think it might be a case of they chance their arm late, but again, that's not information. That's guesswork. I think that the other two are sort of in a pecking order above, because it won't be a disaster if they don't get a left-sided centre back this window. Whereas they need a playmaker, because ultimately they haven't got James probably for the whole season. So and they've got Kulu, who's probably going to be out. Sort of could be Christmas, could be January, could be February. We don't know. So they've obviously got other priorities, but yes, the interest is definitely there. There was some talk that he's got a release clause.
Not this again. Not another release clause. God help us.
Yeah,
no.
the dreaded release clause. But he only renewed, I think, in Christmas 24. So about a year. I think he renewed about a year ago his contract, or a year and a half.
Right.
So I'm not. I got to be honest. I only got the name on that, if you like, and I didn't get how sort of progressed it was. But the information was that they'd identified him as the main sort of candidate now for the left side, which would also back up that they weren't going to go back for 𝐁𝐻. So it sort of fits. But problem for Spurs, of course, is that they've got to try and balance now the numbers of foreign players and homegrowns, and it's really difficult when we can't sell anyone. So we're having really real difficulties, it appears, to be able to get one out the door.
Jason keeps telling me daily, Paul, how can we be signing players? We've got to get players out. That's what Jason said to me, I'm more concerned about bringing players in. Bringing players out than doing players in. Jason would rather do a show with you about the players that are going out than the players coming in. You know what it's like. Okay, so look, we've got that update there. So Savinho, chance they'll go back in for him. Hincapié, ideally, is the one they want. Just again, Paul, you might not be privy to this, but with Hincapié, do you think if they can't get him this window, do you think it's him and nobody else, or do you think they may have alternatives there? Or difficult? You think it's too maybe late now in the window to look at alternatives?
Yeah, I don't think they'll turn their attentions away to someone else in this window. Personally, it would be a surprise. There's no other centre back that I know of that's linked. Apart, obviously, people will say Mark 𝐁𝐻, but from my opinion, anyway, I don't think Mark will be a Spurs player. So I think that it'll be likely to be only have a stab at Hincapié, but again, I can't be too confident on that because all the information, all I have is the information that they've identified him. So when they make their move or if they make a move is another question entirely.
Yeah. Look, let's pivot over. We're in obviously and spoke about one Brazilian, Rodrigo. And Rodrigo, and of course Savinho. Let's go to another Brazilian that's had an interesting last 24, 48 hours. This one is one of our own. He is. I mean, I know we don't see him much, bless him, in terms of his fitness, but Richarlison's obviously got off to a flyer, to a start, a brace, a worldie of, course, that goal he scored, the second one against Burnley. There were maybe indications that maybe he was going to look, or maybe Tottenham would actively look to try and sell him this summer. Just intrigued to know from you, Paul, kind of how much does the optics of the last 24, 48 hours and also the performance he put in against PSG, Frank's reaction by saying he's been top draw in the last week, phenomenal. He called him after PSG, produces that worldie against Burnley. I mean, do you think we can seemingly rule out a world in which Richarlison leaves the club between now and the end of this window?
I mean, make no mistake, Spurs would have dealt on Richie if the right offer had come for them, because as great as he is and as likable as he is, from a footballing perspective, unfortunately it's unfortunate for him and it's sad for him, he can't keep himself fit. And Tottenham aren't in a position where they can sort of carry a lot of injuries, as we've seen. They really suffer if they lose 3 or 4 first team players. So, but he is determined to stay at Spurs. He doesn't want to leave the club. So people say, forcing out the door. That's great, but you've got to find a buyer. And as of yet, there's been no sort of serious interest in him. I think the only club that would stir the pot and make it interesting is if Everton decided to make a move. But there's no sign of that happening because he's universally loved up there and he loved Everton. So that's the only team I could see him leaving for, and I don't think there's any interest from them at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think you've got to think, if you offload someone like Richarlison, how hard is it to find someone of his level to come in at this stage of the window? How long have Arsenal fished around a transfer window just to find a striker that's started, thankfully, pretty terribly, and long may it continue. But there's other very important players we need to retain, Paul. Our new club captain in Romero. We had the interest from Atletico Madrid that was seemingly genuine, but they couldn't afford him at that time and went for someone else. There's a theory that he'd like to live in a Spanish-speaking country and maybe go to La Liga to play. Do you see us being in a position where we could offer him a contract, but more importantly, him actually consider it? There's been talk he's particularly happy in training now. We obviously had that Instagram cryptic post when Ange was moved on, that he didn't seem particularly happy with that, but he seems to be clearly happy now. Can you see a world in which we are likely to offer a contract and him accept it?
I think with Kuti it's I think a year ago, last summer for sure, I think he would have taken a move 100%. But I think this summer, to be fair, I think himself is probably a little bit surprised at the lack of sort of interest from the major players in Europe, and I think that's probably because of his injuries last season and a little bit of suffering of form. And I think ultimately it's sort of done Tottenham a favour in the sense of there's not that much interest in, and that's great because for us he's a world-class defender. So I think he would definitely go if the right team come in, and it's very hard for him to turn around and turn down, say, a Real Madrid or someone, or even a PSG. But I don't think that's going to happen. So I think it's an interesting one, and I don't know which way he'll jump because he has 2 years remaining now, doesn't he?
I think maybe even less than 18 months, maybe. But yeah, you're right. It's in that optics.
Because it's August. Yeah. So it'll be June 30th of 27. So but the club are going all out to sort of make him feel loved, aren't they? And he's sort of reciprocating it on his social media, saying it's beautiful club. Yeah. So now it's a little bit of an acid test for him. So what Spurs should do now is offer a contract straight away. We've given you the captaincy. We've shown our faith in you. We've proved we love you. Here's another, whatever, 50, 80 grand a week, whatever it is that they have to do. And then you're testing his resolve, aren't you? How much do you really love us?
How surprised would you be, Paul, just on that point? I have to ask, whilst in my mind, I'm sorry to cut you there. How surprised would you be, though? Because he's been fairly critical publicly of the board in relation to their perceived lack of ambition, right? Which, I mean, this is the fascinating thing, that if this summer, if these moves come off, which we all hope they are, it could be the most incredible window, right? But I think, again, I will say this as well, that, it's great doing it this window, but I think what a lot of fans feel, I can't speak for all fans, I don't know how all fans feel, but I think a lot of fans would like to see this being the start of a new Tottenham, and that we then don't revert to type, for example, in the January and the following summer, that we go back to bringing in 4 or 5 youth players. There's nothing wrong with youth players. I think, though, you see the clubs that we want to get back to a challenge with, they're all making tremendous strides. I hate to say it, Arsenal, Liverpool, United, to try and buy the best possible players that elevate their first teams. I think that's all we've wanted with Tottenham, is to buy that level of player that walks into the team rather than is just a squad member. So I'm just intrigued to get your vibe on that with Kuti, because he's publicly criticised the club. Would you be? I mean, you're not surprising they would try and offer him a new contract. They're not that bothered about that or fussed about that,
because it's protecting an asset, isn't it? I mean, this is a world-class defender. He's your club captain now, so they're not in a position really to sort of. He's in a very strong position in the sense that he can just let his contract run down. Now is the time for Spurs to strike, and the stuff he said about the board and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm sure that he would have gone to them privately and apologised and said, "Oh, it wasn't meant in that way." Blah blah blah. And ultimately, football is fickle. Football moves on very quickly, and if Spurs can get a contract and a renewal from him, I'm sure that would be sort of what they desire. So I would, if I was the Spurs board now, I think now you test his mettle, and you test his attitude and his real sort of real focus. Is the real focus at this beautiful club or not?
It's worth noting as well, like other people have said, a lot of these marquee signings of these clubs, it does feel like some of them might be running away, but they haven't gone particularly well. Gyökeres hasn't gone particularly well. Wirtz had a poor debut. I'm not convinced Mbeumo is going to be a needle mover for Man United. I think they've panicked into overpaying for someone to try and keep pace. Whereas we probably go too far the other way at times, or we're going, oh, well, they're not perfect, so I'm not going to do it. Or there's an excuse why not to. But this window the last couple feel a bit different, that we're moving in a sensible transfer policy, that we're getting more hits than misses, right? So,
well, if you start shopping in the 50 mil bracket, and theoretically you should be looking at higher quality players, shouldn't you? Unless you're sort of spending 44 million on Ramsey, but that's madness. But we need to stop shopping using our club card and pay the proper prices. And Our issue has been before where we've just gone for opportunistic signings because they're in the last year of their deal or they're going to get relegated and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And you know, it can sometimes come off, and it's great, but you know, to really sort of make people sit up and notice you, you've got to start making proper sort of statement signings, and Eze would be a statement signing. There's no question.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
So you know,
what's also quite interesting, Paul, is that we saw at PSG game and in obviously in Italy that Paratti's not only present but also present with Johan Lang as well, which again makes quite an interesting. I don't know if you can call him a partnership or a double act, one that kind of works in the shadows, you know, in terms of Langer, does his business kind of undercover. You then got Paratti's that normally is spinning 10 plates at a time. Someone that we saw actually, of course, in attendance at Stamford Bridge for that 0-0 draw between Palace and Chelsea. I'm keen to know if you've heard anything about the optics of how they're working. Are they kind of working independently? Are they working together? I mean, just intrigued to get your point on that. And again, it does feel like, you know, I haven't said this often the last few years, so forgive me, this sounds crazy me saying this. It does feel there's a bit more, maybe a little bit more joined up thinking with Tottenham in terms of maybe strategy-wise with the market. I know, again, we maybe had those, I spoke about it earlier in the show, maybe an element of concerning comments around the fact that maybe the players presented to Frank maybe don't fit his alignment. That's probably an ongoing working project. He had 8 years at Brentford with the similar people he surrounded himself in. I'm just intrigued to know from you the optics of both Paratti's and Langer and how they work together or work independently. Have you got a viewpoint on that, or can you tell us maybe how that works from your perspective? Have you heard anything at all?
No, the only understanding I have is that Paratti's is a club consultant, so therefore he'll consult the club on players or deals that he feels that they can get over the line or recommendations and stuff like that. He's obviously got Daniel's ear. So if they, for example, what normally happens is a football club will say, okay, right, we're on the lookout for a left-sided centre-back and he's got to be this sort of criteria, this sort of age, we need these sort of stats, blah, 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 blah. And then people will present their ideas, maybe different agents. Someone like Paratti's would have a black book as big as a Bible sort of thing of players that he can sort of negotiate deals for. So you're always going to use people like that. It's always, oh, well, you employ him full time. You don't need to. You just need to have him as as a consultant. And if he pulls off a deal, he invoices you, and that's as far as it goes. So that relationship, as far as I'm aware, is still the same, and he'll continue to do that. Whether Spurs decide we can't run the risk of him getting employment elsewhere, that's another question. I don't know whether they're prepared to do that. Yeah, there's some very good directors of football out there. Johan, he sort of divides opinion, doesn't he? But I think some of the younger players that he's found have been sort of, fantastic. I mean, Lucas, obviously. So, yeah, I think Paratti's will still be involved on a consultancy basis. As I say, I've got no information as to whether they'll make that a full-time employment role at the moment.
Well, a bit of information I think you do have, Paul, veering the subject a little bit to players before Langer's time. Jed Spence I keep thinking today's going to be the day. Today's going to be the day he's going to commit to a new deal. He's had a really strong start in his debut. Fair argument for him to be a starter at left wing back for us, I think, and that's the massive compliment when you think Destiny Udogie is a player that was linked to Manchester City last year, because that's his level as well. He's phenomenal. We got two brilliant left wing backs, but not only Spence, also Bentancur. I think given we've got Basuma seemingly out and running out of contract, Romero running out of contract, we can't let all these players leave at once next season, or it's rebuild 7.0, right? So do you see us getting the Spence and Bentancur contracts over the line before the summer's up?
Jed's is done, it's signed. So that's just a question of when they decide to announce it. So he signed his deal, so he's extended and he's got a nice pay rise, which was fully deserved. So Jed's is done. That's put to bed. As for Rodrigo, I'm not sure. I know that they were in talks still, negotiating the contract. I know Frank likes him. There's no sort of plans to sort of ship him off. So I think that's just the wheels are in motion on that one. But Jed's is signed and done.
Okay. Well, there you go. Those are the contracts. But unfortunately, Oh, fortunately, we aren't finished just there. We obviously know, and this is where Jason can wake back up. Jace, if you're listening back, Jace, wake up, put the TV back on, switch the golf off. We've got a few players that we do need to see where their futures are going out the door. So we are going to go for our final break of this show. I mean, I've got to say, Paul, I think we've achieved a new record tonight. We've got 25,000 people that are watching this show, which again is absolutely remarkable. 25,000 plus on, including that's our X, our Facebook, our Twitch, our Instagram, YouTube. Thank you so much out there for all your incredible support as always for Last Word on Spurs. And look, you know, we always try and bring you not only the great caliber guests on this show, but also the great caliber people that I know intrinsically a lot of people love to hear from in the Spurs fan base. We're lucky to have a great relationship with Paul that have gone back many, many years. I try not to drive him mad too much mid-window. So I think when we were planning this show, I was kind of going to Paul, we put you in a difficult position here? Because it's always hard mid-window. And I said, Paul, I mean, you said, bless you, in the early part of summer, I saw that situation unfolding with Gibbs-White. When the ex-post were going out, I was currently chasing two kids around the port at the time. And Jim was saying to me, take a break. Don't worry about it. We've got it in safe hands. And people were telling me to not come back, don't come back, stay away. And I was thinking, what is going on with this football club? I mean, it is just quickly, Paul. We're going to come on to the outcome, but crazy club, isn't it? I mean, for you, listen, you're a lifelong fan, you love the club like we love the club. Is it not a crazy club to even try and have an understanding of what is going on at times? Or is it like any other club, but because it's our club, it feels that way?
Yeah, I suppose we get a bit sort of, I don't know, but probably every club acts like this, maybe. I don't know, but we're all paranoid, aren't we? And that, yeah, we've had 24 years of Enix, so we have a right to be paranoid and we have a right to be sort of skeptical of everything that sort of gets associated with the club. But it's not all that bad, you know. And yesterday was a great start, positive start. So, you know, hopefully the worm is turning slowly. And Daniel Levy is turning over a new leaf, maybe. Hopefully moving upstairs to deal with his property projects and God knows what else, and let someone else do the football. That would be lovely. So
that would be lovely.
You never know. Pigs might fly and all that.
Exactly. You never know. Listen, I'm going to hand back over to Jim. A reminder, if you can, out there for us, if you can like the show, like I say, if you can push it out to a wide range Spurs audience, we'd greatly appreciate it. I think we'd all agree that, you know, some of the amazing stuff we've heard from Paul here, be great to get this out to a wide range Spurs audience. Please like and subscribe to the show. Please, likewise with Jim. They've got some amazing content over at OSO Spurs. Regular content over there with a real top-class coach that breaks down a lot of the games week to week, which again is up there right now for, of course, that review of the Burnley game. So we want to make sure you check that out. Please make sure you do. Jim, I'm actually going to hand back to you because we know there's still quite a number of players that we do need to move out.
Yeah.
To make room, hopefully, for those who are coming in. So, Jim, I'll hand back to you.
Paul, I've got a theory on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Is Manor Solomon just being kept on the back burner in case Savinho doesn't come off as a place of depth in the squad? Or do you have any knowledge of his future indicating he's going to be moved on permanently regardless of what happens there?
Yeah, it's a weird one with him, isn't it? I think you know, he's only how many appearances has he even made in what, 2 years? Or it's all whole. Yeah, I couldn't tell you. And the whole thing was strange anyway because there was some argument about whether we'd taken him under sort of, you know, some sort of underhand tactic to avoid paying a certain amount of money for him and all that sort of stuff. It's a very strange one. Obviously, he was very successful at Leeds. I think Leeds will be very much interested. I did get very early on when there was talk of Eze. I did hear that he might be offered as part of a deal, but that never sort of went anywhere. I couldn't get that backed up. So I don't know. They seem to be sort of offering him around, but I don't think he has a future at Tottenham because no one seems to talk about him. He's like the unspoken player, isn't he? No one mentions him. I don't know if Frank's referred to him at all. I can't say I've paid much attention to that. So do you know if he's mentioned him much?
No, he has, has he? I mean, I think he was actually asked of him before the press conference at the weekend, and what he seemed to indicate was he's just recovering from a calf injury. I might be wrong with that, Jim. I don't know if you heard that presser, but didn't appear to be at the moment.
Is he actually injured or?
Well, he got a squad number, didn't he?
Yes.
And Brian Hill didn't, which
yes.
to me shows
they might get
some life in it. Yeah.
Well, I suppose, Gil can't have long on a contract, surely.
No.
I mean,
I can't.
did you know what's at the time? You know, I've got to make you laugh with that Lamella deal. I actually, I know Lamella used to really divide opinion. I love Lamella. I mean, I love Lamella at the time. When you think back to the optics now, I mean, that looked like a no-brainer. Maybe we were going to, sell Eric and bring in Brian Hill. But when you look at it now, maybe should we have just kept Lamella at the time? We would have had more games out of Lamella than we might have got out of Brian Hill. I mean, he's just retired. It's crazy, right? It is absolutely crazy.
Our right wingers always divide opinion as well, don't they? Lamella was real.
Who doesn't divide opinion? Okay, I mean, so we think maybe, Brian Hill, you'd be stunned, wouldn't you, Paul, if he doesn't leave the club this summer? Surely Brian Hill, you'd imagine, will get the move. Or
someone's just put he's under contract till 26. So
right.
So a year left? Yeah, they just farm him out, just get rid of him. I mean, unfortunately, it's not going to work out for him. So, I think he'll obviously get shipped or loaned or whatever they can to sort of reduce the number of foreign players in the squad. So he's definitely going to be gone. Like I say, difficult to tell with Man. I honestly don't know what's going on with him.
Okay.
And obviously we've got Yves Bissouma, who they will happily move on, but as of yet, there's not been enough concrete interest at the moment.
Are you surprised by that, Paul? Because there were murmurs. I think last week there was a suggestion that there might have been a few clubs interested in Italy. I think Roma was one mentioned, but I think that was dependent if they sell Manu Kone. There was also clubs in Turkey. I mean, can you see Bissouma realistic? I mean, if he is to leave, could you see him getting another Premier League move? What do you think, Bissouma? Where could you see him going?
Yeah. Well, he'd love to stay in the Premier League because if he stays in England, then in 1 year's time he can become a UK citizen. So he's keen to stay in England. I don't think moving abroad is going to really sort of tickle his fancy, if you like. I know that West Ham looked at the beginning of the window, which with the Potter link would make sense, but they've not returned since, which is a bit concerning. So they don't seem to be. They don't seem to be playing ball or making any attempts to sort of move towards him. I understand tonight, actually, funny enough, someone messaged me that Everton are considering him, but not really concrete enough to sort of say, oh yeah, they're gonna make a move. He's just on a list that's of potential targets. It sounds like if they don't get others, it sounds like they're talking to some guy who was at Burnley on a free transfer. They're looking at taking him ahead of Biss, but Biss is on that list. So,
right.
That's the only information on him I know, really. I'm not clued up on the foreign interest, to be honest. But from what I heard, he wants to stay here. And Everton have had a look, West Ham have had a look, but as so far, no bites. We
haven't done the best advertising for him either, have we? Hello, would you like a player that's just been late for training 6 times?
What is the best advertising? We should show him back Bilbao. Just show him back the Bilbao. Tell him the Supercut highlights of the Bilbao.
I actually really like this. He's like a lovable rogue, but he's as thick as 2 short planks, isn't he? Because obviously, he doesn't take on instruction. He can't set his alarm clock, and he just lets himself down all the time. And he gets,
Well, yeah.
He's just one of those kids that probably had too much too young and just hasn't sort of grown up enough from the stories you read about him. Unfortunately, he's always late for training. He was always late at Brighton. He always, they don't, like someone said to me the other day, Brighton don't let good players, go for that sort of money. They let them go for massive money, and he went for 25 million. So, but I like him. I mean, the performance in Bilbao. I mean, if he could do that and replicate it more often, what a player! And there was a stage where I remember he played for Brighton at the Emirates, and he just absolutely bossed them. He was outrageous, and it's such a shame. But there you go.
I think that's the thing with him. I think I think as fans from the outside, when we watched him when he wasn't our player for Brighton against all the top 6,
he
looked so impressive. And then we bought him, and we thought, okay, when do we see the real Bissouma?
I don't know. He just has moments, doesn't he, where he's just not on it, and it's like he's zoned out somewhere else, And someone said to me he doesn't take instruction well, like he doesn't understand half the time what they're saying. But in a footballing term, like sometimes he's just a bit, But I really like him. I think he can be a top. If you get a top Basuma, he's a quality player, and the money they're talking about is peanuts. 13 or 14 million quid for him.
Well,
I mean,
is that because is he in his last?
yeah, he's in
year?
his last year, isn't he? So
Yes.
they'll take 12, 14 mil, which
Yeah.
I think one of the promoted clubs or even Brentford, someone should take him for that money because I genuinely like him as a footballer. Yeah,
He seems like a great laugh for a night out. I mean,
mate,
on a night out,
absolutely.
I mean, he's the kind of guy you want to associate yourself with.
Mm.
Whether he's the kind of guy you want to say.
That's the balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the balance.
Yeah, great for a party, great for tape. Go on, Jim, I'm back over to you.
Yeah. Another player, I think, based on pre-season, we might have got a little bit overexcited about, Luka Vuskovic. People were kind of saying, who needs Romero? Let him go. Got this kid. I know that's a bit tongue-in-cheek. People weren't really saying that. But it felt like we had, shall we say, more of a Dragusin upgrade that was going to come into the squad, integrate instantly. We know Frank plays with 3 centre-backs at times. So, wow, what have we put this guy in the middle of them? Big, powerful lad, and let him roam forward and do what he did for Vestaloo, which was score a lot of goals. But it seems to be quite clear that's not going to be the case. He's going to go out on loan. Interest, particularly from Hamburg. The club, is that one going to likely get verified soon? Do you see it coming off? Do you think it's the right thing to do, getting them out for development? I know a lot of people have been critical because they feel it blocks the chance of, it does block the chance of him getting the club grown status as well.
No, it won't affect that because the registration thing is fine if you go on loan. It's the parent. It's the fact that you're at the parent club. Provided you come back by the end of the 3rd year, you'll qualify. So that won't be an issue. Yeah, I do think you need to go out and play men's football because we've sort of seen where we've put young players in our first team squad and around it, and they don't get enough opportunities. And I don't think that. I think the level in beneath the first team, these players are better than that. So get them out there, get them the chance to play against men every single week. And yeah, I think it'll be very wise to get him out. Also adjust to the country, adjust to the lifestyle is completely different. So, and they do the loans quite well, to be fair. So and they just got Mikey a really, really good loan. So. Fingers crossed they get him a good loan. Like you say, maybe it ends up in Germany actually, which obviously won't help him in terms of settling into England. But maybe they're more concerned about the level than necessarily the other bits that go along with it. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, it would be fine if he goes on loan in this country, so it won't affect his status. But it would if he went abroad. I think that's right anyway. No doubt someone will correct me.
Yeah. Have you been more impressed with the way the loan system has been at Tottenham, Paul, recently, with the way players have gone out in terms of their development?
Well,
what do you make of it so far?
Yeah, I mean, they're not messing around with them, are they? They've done loads this summer,
Yeah.
but it's the first team they seem to have trouble sort of shifting on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Will scored on his debut, didn't he? Alfie Devine scored as well, I believe. So they seem to have found a few decent loans and homes for these lads. It's very difficult for a youth player to come through and end up as a sort of full-time professional Premier League player. The chances are so low. It's mad, and the gap is huge, and you don't sort of gauge that until they go out and try their arm in it, like a Championship or a League One environment.
The other name, obviously, I think Dane Scarlett is one that obviously has not yet moved on. I suppose that's one we're going to keep an eye on. You'd imagine. I'd be surprised if Dane, if you agree, Paul, I'd be surprised if Dane does stay here. Yeah. If Tottenham do pull off the signing they're trying to pull off, right? Be unlikely Dane is going to see a huge amount of game time, you'd imagine?
I don't see his future at Spurs, to be honest.
Permanently, you mean, as in general?
Yeah, I think they'll let him go. Yeah.
Right.
Obviously, they can only let him go if they get a reasonable sort of deal for the lad. But yeah, I just don't. It's only in my opinion. I don't see him having a future at Tottenham. To be fair.
Okay, Jim.
I think they'll let him go.
Yeah.
I'll hand back over to you. And there's a couple of names out there that have done the rounds in the last, again, 24, 48 hours. Let's clear up these. I know fans will may want some answers from Paul if he's heard anything, if he knows anything. I'll hand to you.
Yeah, there's just a couple more. Should we call them the long tail list? Marnes Akiush, he's been linked in from Monaco.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like Morgan Rodgers has been bouncing around for quite a while as well. Have you heard there's any real... I guess they depend on what happens with our other targets, but have you heard any of them actually being concrete links?
Yeah, the lad at Monaco, they like a lot. Yeah, very much so. But I think that's very that's lots of clubs that like him. But yeah, he's certainly on a list of whether you want to call it alternatives or whatever. Obviously, everything's concentrated at the moment on Eze. So if they pull that deal off, you would suspect they won't pull this one off as well. They wouldn't go for him. And same with Rodgers. Why would you sign Eze and Rodgers? I don't personally see a world where that makes sense. To be fair. So yeah, I'm not sure I buy the Rodgers stuff. But again, you know, he's going to qualify as homegrown English, isn't he? So, you know, that was an area they were looking at. So I suppose it's feasible, but it's nothing I can shed any light on. I've not heard that.
Okay, so you think really focuses on Eze, Paul, and these particular couple of players would be potential alternatives if they failed to get Eberechi Eze over the line, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably more the case, to be fair.
Yep. Yeah, listen. So look, I mean, just to give everyone a round up there for those that are walking halfway through, we're hopeful that Eze will be a Tottenham player. You know, it doesn't, you know, I keep saying this. I mean, when that gets announced, Paul.
If
it gets announced.
If it don't, I'm gonna be crucified. So yeah.
Well, you won't get as much stick as Daniel Levy, bless him, but I think if this doesn't go,
it might go close on this
occasion. Borderline.
Yeah.
I think we will have to also do a runner. But I mean, what is that reaction going to be? I mean, can you think back, Paul, to any recent player in our recent history? I'm thinking, I mean, the big one maybe was Bale coming back home was quite big. The Van der Vaart deal was big at the time, but the Eze one, how big do you think that is for maybe, you know, younger listeners or viewers that are watching this show? How big do you think that Eze deal will be for Tottenham? Signing a player in the peak of his career, you know, match-winning goal in a cup final, being part of big games for Palace, big goals for them. How big is this in terms of maybe I even dare to say a statement of intent from Tottenham in terms of the caliber of player they're signing and almost the figurehead they're looking to bring? Because I think we all agree, Jim, we touched upon this the other week, that we've got no Son anymore. We've got no Harry Kane. So it does feel like the club are missing that player that you do pay your money for. You know, when you're growing up younger, for me, it was Ginola. I paid my money to watch Ginola when I was younger. I loved Ginola. And for many, it would have been Robbie Keane, or it would have been, you know, at the time, Berbatov, for example. Does he fit that level of bracket where you are just paying to come and watch Eberechi Eze? He's that good.
I think also for us as Spurs fans, we've all wanted him. Well, majority of us have wanted him for 2 or 3 years. So this is like, it feels like we've sort of done enough to sort of, you know, get him at our football club, and we've wanted him for so long. So the hunger to get it up finally over the line will be a lot more intense. I think. You know, the other guy is just as exciting if they get Savinho over the line. He is a phenomenal talent and a phenomenal prospect. I mean, yes, he's still a bit raw, but the raw materials you can work with there are ridiculous, especially when you consider that you know, you talk about bums off seats players. Well, we just signed one because Kudus is exactly that. I mean, that guy, him on the right, Savinho on the left, as they pulling strings behind a centre forward, all of a sudden. It's, you know, it sounds too good. It's too good to be true, isn't it?
Are we back? That's what. Are we back?
Well, I think we've been in a position where we haven't been before. In fairness, about being back, I don't know about being back, but we've been in a position where, we'd be frightening. To be fair, the football world would go, actually, Jesus,
don't want to play Tottenham.
They're proper serious. So, and then when you add in, you know, if you got your Van der Vaart and Van der Ven.
Well, you're excited. We're bringing Van der Ven out. We're bringing Van der Vaart out of retirement.
Do one of those,
But then, you know,
you do another one. That'd be nice.
You've got your core of Kuti and Van der Ven at the back with Destiny and Porro feeding them. All of a sudden,
looks like a proper team, doesn't it?
It's a team that can. All we want as fans is a team that's going to be able to challenge,
Amen.
and you know, we're not expecting to win every single trophy, but we want to be competitive in it. We don't want to go into games thinking, oh fuck me, it's Burnley at home, we're scared. We want to go into that game thinking we're going to fucking annihilate them, you know. So and you can't breed that mentality and culture without backing it up. So they've won this Europa League. They've got a trophy. They've got that Spursy tag removed for the time being. Now they need to press the accelerator, and if they don't, then that'll be Daniel's biggest crime. To be fair, and he's got plenty on the charge sheet.
I do push back when people say, you know, this squad is terrible. I'm like, wait a second. Udogie and Spence are Champions League level players.
Yeah.
Romero and Van der Ven are Champions League level players.
Yeah.
Pedro Porro is a Champions League level player. Paulinho probably is.
Exactly.
Well, you know what I mean? We can go on. Bentancur is when he's on form. Kudus certainly looks like he is.
Yeah, exactly.
And even the questionable ones like Solanke, who people would be divided over, they're still good footballers. They may not be Man City level good, but they're still able to hold their own in European competitions. Yeah. So, and then you look at the clubs we're competing with for these positions in Newcastle and Villa for the 5th spot, say, you know, that's the next step. Like, they've got loads of gaps in their squads. They're one injury away from a nightmare in 3 or 4 positions. So I think we can often overly criticise our own squad without realising that it's actually come quite a long way in the last couple of years in terms of the balance of it.
I don't want to go back on Ange or anything like that, but I think that we've been guilty as fans of sort of dismissing how good that squad actually is in the last sort of 6 months or so, because we was losing so many games and sort of just dismissing it as it doesn't matter. We're going to win the Europa League, and yes, all right, we did win the Europa League, and that's amazing, and it's a trophy, and it's that thing off our back. But I think during that period, we sort of convinced ourselves that these players are all donkeys. You know, they're not good enough, and that's just not true. You're telling me that a Premier League club wouldn't take Cuti Romero, they wouldn't take Van der Ven, you know, they wouldn't take Destiny, they wouldn't take, like you say, the players that you mentioned. You know, we've got the nucleus of a decent squad. Yes, it needs touching up, but we're not 10 players short. We're about 3-4 players short, in my opinion, to be able to compete properly. And those 3 or 4 players need to be 50, 60, 70 million pound players. You know, I think every Premier League manager would take Lucas Bergwijn out at this minute. You know, So you know, I think we're guilty a little bit of sort of falling for this rhetoric that we're dog shit, and we really aren't. There is a very good squad there, and I think, you know, this season, I think, won't necessarily surprise people, but I think we will be back in the higher end of the league table than sort of sitting in the doldrums saying everything's crap.
Quite agree. It's just when I think you get the anxiety as fans when you see a Liverpool go and sign Ekitike and then go, I'm going to get Isaac too, and Chelsea signing 6 players in a window. You go, we're falling behind, but it's consistent recruitment that's important.
Yeah, and
not
Spurs every summer have always looked 3 players short. Yeah, that's been our history under ENIC. You go into a season short. That's what they do every single season. And Daniel Levy had the cheek to say we try to end the window stronger than when we started it. Well, come on, mate. Yeah, that's fucking bullshit. We can't stand for that. We're not going to swallow that. And he's now got the opportunity to sort of dispel that myth a little bit. But again, with the season has kicked off and they've not got the players through the door. So I know how difficult deals can be, but at the same time, you know, if you really, really, really want to make something happen, then you make it happen, don't you? You just go that bit above and beyond. So
listen, we know it's been a very challenging last however many years, but I mean, like I say, I think all we want to do is, I don't know if you agree, Jim, we want to replicate what we had at Bilbao on a more frequent occurrence, right? That's why we love the club. That's why we all invest so much time into the club. We want to see the club win. I think we all want to see the club that can be competitive, right? And it does feel that if, I know you told about it, Paul, if rather than when we get these signings over the line, you have to say that it is over to the manager then to try and deliver, because the board have done what we've been asking them to do for a very, very long time in one predominant window, is go and bring in players that are actually going to really affect the first team. They've done that. But I think, again, we'll come back to that point that, it can't just be one window. It's all well doing it for one window, but what we want to see is a consistency piece where we then look in January to bring in players that, again, look at the first team. And again, the following summer. That's not saying you don't supplement. You add, again, youth prospects into there, but it's just trying to get those standards back where we want to see top quality players come in that are actually going to be a needle mover and affect the first team, Paul.
Yeah. And how many years are we going to have this, or we need to build? Fucking 24 years they've been building. And all they built is a college and a few hotels and a few shops. So, that line gets tired, You're telling everyone you're this massive, successful business, and you've got this multi-billion-pound stadium, and it's the best in the country, and then you're trying to shop in Lidl and Aldi. It doesn't wash. The two don't align, so you can't get away with those bullshit excuses forever. So, Spurs have to step up and really sort of come to the fore with targeting top players. Pay them the proper money, the proper wages to get them through the door.
Yeah.
And then nobody gives a shit, in my opinion anyway, if ENIC make £20 billion a year if the football team is successful. Nobody cares. Yeah. I do not care how many concerts he has. He can have one every other night if he wants. No problem, yeah? He can have the Spice Girls there and do what he likes, all right? No one has a problem with that if the football club is not seen as the poor relation. Yeah. And that's the issue for fans, and that's why they get pissed, and that's totally understandable.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to that point that we saw last night. I think they were suggesting that negotiations were difficult. Where you're thinking, well, 2 Beyonce concerts pay for that, and Eubank and Ben pay for it. So it's just about a case of trying to. It's a fee difference with Eze. Then you'd like to think we can pay the money, but look, we know again negotiations when you're dealing with those kind of level of players are not easy. As we touched on in this show, Steve Parish again will want to protect his asset for his club where they've got European football, which again is part of I think we're also as fans sometimes we intrinsically only think about our club and if it is on us, but we don't ever think about but players have got to go and find a replacement. They've got to go and do their bits at their end to go and make this possible for them to release the player. I think sometimes we're so caught up in a world where we worry about ourselves that we don't ever focus about what the selling club have got to do, right? And this is again part of the jigsaw of the transfer window, right, Paul?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I say, it's just a matter of them pushing forward and showing they sort of show their metal, now their colours to the mast, and sort of really go for it in this transfer window. And I mean, they did try. It went pear shaped, but they did try and throw 60 million after they just thrown 55 million. So that money now. The issue they've got slightly is people know they got that money. So and people like Steve Parish can just sit there and play the long game, because why does he need to rush negotiations? He doesn't need to do anything. He knows that Tottenham have lost their main creative midfielder. He knows that it's probably too late to start targeting someone else in the window. He knows that Daniel's got 60 million quid up his sleeve, so he can sort of drag that out as long as he likes, obviously till the last knock-ins if he wishes to do that. So but from what I understand, that deal should, touch wood, should get done.
Well, you said 10 minutes, 50 minutes ago, though, Paul. So I'm losing confidence.
You know what? We've been on here so long. My AirPods are on 20%.
Well,
they're
that basis,
I charge them all day as well. Yeah. So.
He knows it's Last Word On Spurs. They've got to be charged for Last Word On Spurs, especially.
It'll be the last word if they go dead. Yeah.
I tell you. Listen, I want to say a massive thank you, Jim. Thank you so much. Always the education having Paul on. Great to get him on. And again, I know right now it's never easy. As we've seen Jim during the window with the amount of high profile of guests we've had on. It's a difficult place to have to do any kind of work or due diligence in, because it changes all the time, right, Jim? The optics change, and as fans, emotionally, we just want our targets. We want them through the door, right?
Yeah, win football matches, and everyone leaves you alone in football. Yeah, and the fans are happy.
Yeah,
so that's the key to our hearts. And sign,
easily done.
Yeah. And like you guys have said, I feel like Eze's he's the Grealish down. We always link to those players, the Grealish, the Downings, whoever they are. The Damiao, whatever it is.
The Fernandez.
He's that one. But
the Willian out the window. Those are ones.
Willian, yeah. But he's one that feels like it will work because he's a Premier League proven player in his prime. So anyway.
Yeah.
Take it
You're
over
going to
there, bud.
start, Jim. Thank you so much. Paul, thank you so much. Do you want me to redirect where we've got nearly 28,000 approaching that are watching the show? Do you want to redirect where 28,000 people can find you? Or would you rather me keep them in suspense about where they can find you on social media?
I think they will find me and hunt me down if we don't sign Eze anyway. So I don't think I really need to advertise it. So, but listen to get them to listen to the Inside Forward pod. That's a Premier League pod that I do. That's great fun, actually. So.
We're going to put that. Tell me where they can find that, Paul. Because how often is that? That obviously the Inside Forward pod you do. It's a Patreon pod. Tell me a little bit about that. Where they can find that.
Yeah, we try and do a couple of months. It's difficult because of the lads that are involved. They're always very difficult to sort of tie them down to a regular schedule. So, it's something we are aware of. We're trying to sort of calm that down a bit. Where we're a bit erratic with our shows, but we try and do a couple of months, and it's just basically about movement in the Premier League with some very good guys and some very knowledgeable inside football, inside knowledge of football. So yeah, all good fun. That's Inside Forward. The @ is on my profile.
And you'll find that also in our episode description. If I can just make everybody laugh, and everyone, Crackers is coming back to the show very, very soon. He's killed me the last few weeks, Crackers, with claiming that my timekeeping is similar to Basuma. Jim will probably also recognise that and agree, and Paul also is recognising that and agree as well. So please accept my apologies. But probably you wouldn't expect Crackers to be the aggregator of the night. So just so you're aware, Paul, when you come offline, Crackers has gone with the bomber alert that you've announced that the Spice Girls are playing at the stadium every other night on Last Word On Spurs. So along with the Eze trending from Paul O Keefe, you've got the Spice Girls that are at the stadium every night of the week. So make sure you strap in for Baby Spice, for Sporty Spice, for all the spices to come. And let's hope things are going to get spicy between now and the end of this transfer window. I want to say a massive thank you to Jim at Oso Spurs, to the wonderful Paul O Keefe. As always, thank you so much to nearly the 28,000 of you that are watching Last Word On Spurs. We've taken half the South Stand or all of the South Stand with us, from myself, from Jim, from Paul. We've been the Last Word On Spurs. Please keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.